It's time for this week's episode of Trader Chat with Flynn Goward, who doesn't look that happy this week because he has had one of those weeks that bookmakers don't like to have. They lost money. Not a good week for the firm. What went on, Flynn?
Football first. So football was really, really tough. I mean, when you look at the main results from last week, your boys Liverpool went and did the job against Chelsea. We laid them. You had Arsenal against West Ham, who obviously just got over the line. It was a pretty poor performance from Arsenal, and I'm an Arsenal fan myself saying that. But they managed to get over the line. That was a bad result. Then Spurs against Southampton looked pretty dubious for Spurs in the first half, but they managed to turn on in the second half. And just while we're on the topic of Spurs, we've had some moves in the top goal scorer market. So Son obviously scored 4 goals. So he's moved from 66 into 22 to one for that market to be leading the top goal scorer at the end of the season.
Salah's going to win that, isn't he?
You'd think so. I mean, he's still very short in the market, but the other Liverpool man was actually short in there. So Mane obviously scored 2 at the weekend, 20 into 10 after 2 goals against Chelsea. So 2 moves in the goal scorer market, bad for us in terms of the games of the weekend. And we've also seen Liverpool shortened up to 6-4 from 2s for the outrights, which obviously you'll be delighted with, I'd imagine, Johnny.
Well, I think you probably took on Liverpool with a bit of reasoning and a bit of foundation behind it, and it just didn't work out. And you got a crazy red card, and it's kind of game over at half time, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still early days. I mean, Chelsea just look like they start putting their team together. I'm not sure Lampard will start to do that throughout the season, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, a few moves there for you.
Yeah, and in terms of the start of the season so far in the Premier League, are you kind of a little bit jittery about laying teams, still behind closed doors, or, are you going to start making money pretty soon?
Not jittery. I mean, we like to lay a bet, and we trust the markets, and we trust the prices that we do put up. So even with the season handicaps, the goals handicaps, what I think is really interesting is the amount of goals so far. I mean, it's just been mental, isn't it? Like 4 threes, 5 twos, just real highest goal scoring games, and that's kind of playing havoc with our goals handicap market. Because obviously we've seen Leeds score a huge amount of goals so far, and it's interesting seeing what closed door effect it's having on the amount of goals being scored.
What about the US Open? Was that any better?
Slightly better. We couldn't give away Bryson DeChambeau after his poor performance at Eastlake the other week. We couldn't give him away, and we just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. He got up to 22-1, and we did lay him a little bit, but the result was absolutely fine for us. Wolf would have been a Skinner in the book, so we would have preferred Matthew Wolf to keep hold of that 2-shot lead that he had going into the final round. But just to touch on the offer that we had as well, we had get paid out in free bets if your golfer leads after any round. So we paid out on Justin Thomas, Patrick Reed, Wolf, and then obviously Bryson, you got paid out like normal because he won the tournament. So we did our dough on the free bets, but we made it all back in the actual market.
An exciting time for Irish cycling as well, with Sam Bennett winning the green jersey at the Tour de France. But what actually happened in terms of the yellow jersey over the last sort of couple of days was just out of this world. And how did this affect the markets?
Well, I think before the time trial, Roglic, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but we'll go with it anyway. He was 25 on, I think. I mean, you might be able to correct me there, but he was 25 on going into that time trial, gave the time away. Which actually helped us out because Roglic, being the anti-post favourite, was the main loser in the book. So it actually turned out all right for us in the end.
Yeah, pretty crazy tour. Obviously on the racing front, it's been pretty quiet of late. What's been going on?
Main race of the weekend was the Ayr Gold Cup. Jolly winning that. And when you go through a lot of the races of the weekend, it was a similar story. We did our money on the racing of the weekend, but Nahaarr winning at 7-2 in the Ayr Gold Cup wasn't a great result. The main loser in the book was actually the old faithful Mr. Lupton, who ended up finishing 3rd. So did our money in that race, and we'll be looking forward to the Cambridgeshire meeting this week in Newmarket.
Yeah, we've a little bit of an interesting one to talk about just before the end in terms of the interaction of some of our punters or whatever. But in terms of the Irish Greyhound Derby, went ahead. This is an unbelievable night out, Flynn. It's like one of my favourite nights out of the year. It's a bit mad. It's absolutely manic. Really lively betting ring. None of that this year. Dublin's gone into almost like a mini lockdown, and it was a Greyhound Derby like no other, I suppose. How was it for the firm?
Newman Taylor was a small loser in the book, but main thoughts go out to the connections of Pastano, who obviously suffered a bad injury there. It was a tough watch, even though it's such an exciting race. But yeah, small loser in the book with Newman Taylor, and then we move on to the English Ground Derby. So the draw for that's on Saturday, and then that all gets started over here on the 2nd of October. So we're looking forward to that at Star Sports HQ.
I'm looking forward to that, Flynn. Thanks for your time.
No problem at all.